and it's Mirrorboard, which is a interactive whiteboard. We'll talk more about it when we get into that. We're also going to be using Mentimeter, which is a polling function software that you can get an instant feel from people about how they feel about a particular question or a particular issue. So that's the tech that we're going to be using. I'm going to set some very basic ground rules. If you disagree with any of them, just please say, particularly as you'll just see, we're going to be recording this session, and Elisa has just pressed record. The purpose of doing this is that this is a one-to-many session, but even so, we've got 12 participants, and 2 of them, well, 3 of us, including Ren from Sustain as well, apart from part of the Sustainable Food Places program. We want this to be available to more people if at all possible. So we will be posting a recording of this session onto the website. So it's publicly available. So it's being recorded for that, but just be aware it's being recorded. It will be public available, and it may sort of make you think about what you want people to hear and not hear whilst we're going through this. But you know, there's nothing to hide, but it is a safe space, but it is going to be publicly available. That's the main thing. I'm going to suggest that everybody uses gallery view, because I'm going to try and make this interactive and participatory. I'm talking a lot at the moment up front just to set the scene, but we are going to be doing much more interactive stuff as we go through. So gallery view is a very good way of doing that. I'm also going to suggest, and I know that it's not always possible for tech reasons or for any reason, but I'm going to suggest that we keep our videos on. We get a lot more in terms of interaction with each other in a session like this, which is aimed at being participatory and interactive, if we can see each other. I know that may not be possible for some of the people, and I can see, oh, hello, Rachel, as I say it. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, please don't feel you have to, but I'm going to suggest that we do try and keep videos on, because it does just make it a lot more interactive and participatory. The other things, if you want to say something, put your hand up like this, close to your camera if possible, so that we can see it really clearly, and we'll try and acknowledge that we've seen you. But that's the way to sort of ask us a question. You can also use the reactions button. A hand up will, oh, raise hand there. I've just raised my hand just to say that I've got something to say. The same thing as putting your hand up like this. So use either. We're not going to attribute comments from this session to anybody in particular, so do feel free to sort of be conscious of the rules of what we're going to do. I'm going to hand over to Elisa to just give a little, very quick mention of how this fits in the sort of a longer series of sessions that we're running.
Thanks, Ben. Just really quickly to say that we've been running a series of workshops facilitated by Food Matters for the most part, but there might be a few more further down the line. Just really with the theme of coming out of COVID and trying to get some thoughts and opinions and experiences from you, the network. So we had one about coming out of COVID. This one's about remote working. There'll be another one next month, and I can send the link around as well. But just to say that we're trying to have these every few months.
And just to add to that, the idea is that we are doing work with food partnerships and also internally within the program that we think might be useful to other members of the network. So this is a way of amplifying that learning. We're calling it one-to-many sessions. So instead of doing a one-to-one with all of you, we try and bring it together into a one-to-many session like this. So this session, we're focusing on remote working. It's basically about how to get the most out of the sort of planning and partnership development sessions that you may be running or may want to run, but how to do that on remote platforms. So we're talking about virtual meetings like this one. It's how to make those meetings as productive and meaningful and hopefully enjoyable as possible. And it focuses on a very small number of different interactive tools that you could use that I've mentioned already, Miro and Mentimeter, which is what we're going to be talking about a little bit today, but also participatory approaches around facilitation. So I'm a facilitator. Normally I'd be doing sessions like this in a room with people or in a hall. I've had to change my work practices and adopted new ways of doing things because of what's been going on with the pandemic. And I found that very interesting. Quite challenging sometimes, but very interesting as well, because there's some very good stuff out there and it's quite interesting. I'm getting on a bit, but I've learned some new tricks here. It's good. And I'm beginning to wonder if maybe I should have been using some of these tricks a long time ago. There's some good things about them. And even if we're beginning to see a glimmer of hope of coming out of COVID, I think that these sort of approaches and some of these tools that you can use may still be really, really valuable and viable going forward. So it's not just a pandemic thing, it may be beyond as well. So let's get into it. Is everybody all right? A quick thumbs up if everybody's happy with where we are. Great. Okay, I've just seen from Kiloran, hello, video bandwidth not allowing it to happen, so I completely understand that. And Sam is saying no worries as well. Great. Okay, so I'm going to ask you all to just watch something for a minute. I know you've got the Mirrorboard on your screen. Some of you, can I just have a quick thumbs up for who has actually managed to go to the Mirrorboard and use it? Okay, well, that's great. Thank you for doing that, by the way. What I'm going to do is share screen and just for those of you who haven't had a go already, I'm going to do a quick demo, because if nothing else, I think it'd be really useful if people had an idea of how the Mirrorboard works. So can I just check from Elisa, can you see screen share the Mirrorboard now? Thank you. Okay. So this is what you came across when you came to the Mirrorboard. Some of you will already know this. I'm just going to do it very quickly. You can see already I'm left clicking with my mouse and moving the board from left to right. You can see that my cursor is a little arrow. If I left click, it becomes a fist, and I can move the board around. So I can navigate around the board by gripping it and moving it. So that's the first thing. I can also zoom in and out by scrolling the wheel on my mouse. So I'm going out and I'm coming back in again. So some of you will be working on a laptop with a trackpad. If you're doing that, come up here to where the settings are, and a whole menu drops down, and one of the menu items is navigation mode. So if you're using a laptop, open that and change to trackpad, and that gives you some instructions on how to use the trackpad. Scroll by sliding 2 fingers on the trackpad, zoom by pinching in and out. So if you're on a trackpad, that's how you use that. So I'm going to go back to mouse because I'm on a PC with a mouse. So that's how you move around the board. Mirrorboard is an interactive whiteboard. You can actually zoom right in really close if you want to. So you can see what's on the board very clearly. So instead of like less commuting stress has been written on a Post-it note there, instead of expanding the size of the Post-it note in order to see it, just zoom in and out and you can read it all right. So I'm zooming out again now. The most basic feature that I think we need to know for today is how to put one of these Post-it notes down on the Mirrorboard. So I'm just going to quickly demonstrate how to do that. So if you can see my cursor, I'm going to go over to the left-hand side there. There's a sticky note. Click the sticky note and a color menu comes up. I'm going to choose a really nice dark mauve color. My cursor is now changed to a floating sticky note and I can put it wherever I want to. I'm just moving my mouse around. I'm going to plonk it down here on the middle of the Mirrorboard. I'm going to zoom in so I can see what I'm writing, and you can see the flashing cursor, which means it's ready for me to write in it. I'm just going to write hello. But you will also see, if I write how are you, Oh, great. The more I write, the font changes size. So I don't have to expand in order to fit the font in. I don't have to change the font size. It automatically fits. And that's basically it. It's fairly straightforward. I'm going to actually say, I made a mistake. I want to go back. There's a back undo arrow here. So I'm undoing the text I put in. I'm undoing the fact that I put in a Post-it note. So if you do make a mistake, you can do that. The only other thing I'll mention is that if you want to put a Post-it note in and you don't want it to be moved by anyone, click it in. I just did it again, sorry. Did it quickly without saying what I was doing. Grab a Post-it note, choose your color. I'll go to a different color this time, the orange, plonk it down there. What was I going to demonstrate? I can't remember. Oh, if you want to lock it, you can see this menu here that pops up when you select your Post-it note, a menu comes up, there's a little lock sign there. And that means nobody else can move that Post-it now. And if you want to unlock it, you just have to press here and hold, and you see it's unlocked again. Okay. So does that make sense to people? Because what I'm going to suggest you do, I'll get rid of my Post-it note, is if you haven't already, have a quick think about how you would answer this question. What one word sums up your experience of remote meetings? What one word sums up your experience of remote meetings? This could be on Zoom or on Teams or anything. And you can see some have been put down there already. Have a go at putting your Post-it note on there. I'm actually going to stop sharing now so that you can see your own Mirrorboard, and I'm going to let those of you who haven't already have a quick go at putting a Post-it note up there. If anybody has any issues, just stick your hand up and we'll try and deal with them as they come up. The really fun thing for me now is just seeing all of your cursors moving around on the screen.
Ben, I think Sam's got a hand up.
Sam. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just about to type into chat. I'm guessing I need to have downloaded something that I don't have. Is that right? Just to have the Mirrorboard to work from.
Yes. Are you on a laptop or?
Well, no, it's all a bit bonkers. We're having work IT issues, so I'm on an iPad. So I don't know whether I will or I won't. I've got a phone as well with me, so I can.
Try on your iPad. If you can, you see the chat. Zoom chat.
Yeah, but I would have to like log into on the iPad. Yeah, I've got Zoom chat.
In chat, you can see that Elisa has just posted a link to the Mirrorboard.
Okay.
And that should take.
Okay, that's all I needed, I guess. Okay, thank you very much.
I haven't done this on an iPad though, so if there are issues, I may be a bit nonplussed by them.
Right. Okay. I will see how I go. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how this works with the mouse thing.
The mouse thing, two fingers on the. Oh, actually, on an iPad again. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh well. Okay.
Well, Sam, if it doesn't work on your iPad, feel free to just put your thoughts in the chat here on Zoom, and I can pull it up for you.
Okay. Yeah. We'll see what happens. Maybe it'll work.
I love that I just picked up on someone's comment which just says tech issues, which is what we're talking about a little bit. Yeah, very apposite. I'll just give you a couple more minutes. It looks like most of you, any more questions or queries? I think if nothing else, if you leave this session with a little bit of knowledge how to use this tool and a little bit of excitement about maybe using it in the future, I think I would be happy, because I think this is brilliant myself as a facilitator. I think it's a fantastic tool. Yes, it has tech issues. Yes, it can be a little bit tricky sometimes, but it is as close as you can get to doing a Post-it flip chart type exercise in a room with people. So it's great to see you all having a go. Can I just get a thumbs up if everybody feels, I can see you're clustering as well, which is fantastic. You're putting down comments and you're putting them next to similar comments. So you're already doing a bit of analysis. Again, as a facilitator, this is what I want to see, is you not only thinking for yourself, but looking at what other people have put down on the board and thinking, actually, my comment is similar to that. So we're beginning to analyze into clusters of themes, which is fantastic. I can still see a little bit of that going on, so I won't go straight on. Brilliant. So have a quick read of what other people have put up there. I could see there there's some quite interesting clusters. Does anybody want to just sort of pick up a little bit on what's been going on there? Does anyone feel confident enough to just sort of give an idea of what these different clusters are about that you've been building? If you want to, just put your hand up and just tell me what you think the clusters that you're seeing actually represent.
I'll have a go if no one else wants to.
Brilliant. Who is that? Sorry, that's Emma. Emma. Brilliant, Emma. Thank you. I didn't see you speaking. Yeah, just a quick guided tour, if you like. And if anybody thinks that she's getting it wrong, just put your hand up and you can correct if she's misinterpreting something. But yeah, go ahead, Emma.
I kind of feel like most of us can see like pros and cons of having them. I think one of the best things about them is that no one's wasting time commuting and trying to find venues, and especially when it's groups like this that are spread all over the country, like it's way more accessible for people like that. And not having to book somewhere, not having to plan getting there in advance, parking or traveling there, just saves so much time and effort that way. However, I think there's so many limitations to them. Kind of like you said at the start, Ben, like it's so easy just to turn your camera off and kind of hide behind the screen. And I think that's one of the downsides to them, is that they can get a little bit like boring or dull if people don't engage with them. It depends what group you're working with, and if people don't want to engage and want to turn the cameras off, then it can get really boring. But I think it feels like there's pros and cons to both having a mixture of face-to-face and virtual meetings.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Does that tally with other people's thinking? You can see whilst Emma was talking, I was tapping in a very basic notes on what she was saying, some of the key features of what she was sharing with us there, just to sort of try and document that. But does anybody sort of want to say if they agree and want to expand on what Emma was saying, or if you disagree with it, if there's anything else that you want to add? Nikki, yeah.
Well, I agree, and I think there's so much untapped potential about these meetings. So part of this, speaking personally, part of this is not realizing the potential of it, but at the same time, I do wonder whether it's because it's easier, there's just a massive proliferation of meetings and people are just really tired a year in. And something maybe about the online nature of it requiring short attention spans. You know, you can't, you know, when we used to meet face to face, used to get together for maybe a day, and that just isn't possible, advisable when it's online. But there's something about the medium which lends itself to shorter meetings, I think. That's speaking.
Brilliant. I've just again tapped in some notes on that. Do people agree with that? That it does actually have an impact on, in a way, your expectations of a meeting, what you hope to get out of it. You might have to tone that down a little bit. As we've said already, this was going to be a 2-hour session. We learned from the last one, that's quite a lot, particularly when it's interactive. Let's do a 1.5-hour session. Let's try and not achieve everything in one go, maybe do more than one meeting. Let's sort of just set our goalposts a little bit differently so that we are not trying to do too much in one go. And through this medium, it is, as everybody has been saying on the board, it is quite tiring. Zoom fatigue, headaches. I think that is a very, very good point, and I was going to draw it out. What part of the learning of this is, yeah, set your expectations a bit differently when you're doing it online. Don't expect too much out of it. Anybody have any more thoughts on what you now see on this screen, which to me is already looking like a really interesting bit of participatory work? I'll just quickly show you other things you can do if you want to. I'm going, maybe I'll share screen to show you how I'm doing this. Again, can I check, Elise, so that you can see my screen? Yeah, I don't know if you're probably a bit clogged up with different things, but over on the left-hand side, if I take the connection line here, well, actually, no, which one would it be is the best one? I'm going to use this. Let's try the connection. I haven't done it for a while, so I'm going to just draw a line here. You can draw boxes around. When you're doing your clustering, you can actually draw boxes around the clusters that you've created. You can change the color of your box. You can actually highlight a little bit if you want. This is actually, this is the one I should have been using. I'm going to change the thickness of the outside of the box, and I'm going to use a different color to pick it out. You can see I've drawn a line now around that cluster there, which is quite a useful thing to do, to just draw attention to what you're doing on the board. We've got a cluster there which is about your energy and the impact it has on your well-being. This is some of the positive stuff down in the corner here. The other way to do this is to take a line, and that's a connection line. That's not going to work, so I'll undo that. This pen, okay, I'm going to draw a line around here. That's another way of actually picking out your clusters if you want to. So I can actually change the color of that as well if I want to. Actually, I've just changed. There's a highlighter there. There's all sorts of different tools that you can use to pick out your different clusters. Always going back to my select tool just to sort of be able to move around the board. But you can see there's quite a lot of different functions that you can use on this board if you want to. So before we go on, can I just check if there's any more questions about Miro? I'll just stop share so we can go back to your own view of your own board. Yeah, Louise.
So the facilitator can then, at the end of the session, can you just download like how it's the final kind of board? Yeah, it's a great bit of of software. What I can do is, again, let me just share screen just to show you this. Each of these clusters now, if I've got my select tool, the little arrow here, I'm going to press Shift and I'm going to select that little cluster of Post-it notes there, and I can export to Excel. And that takes all of the words separately onto separate cells on an Excel spreadsheet. And from that, you can cut and paste and put it in a Microsoft Word doc as well. But it's absolutely amazing that you can actually just export this. You can export the whole thing if you want to. You could just select the whole board and do the same, export that to Excel, and then you've got an Excel spreadsheet with it all on. But it may not be organized into the clusters. So I actually take each cluster separately so that I can make sure that the analysis that's been done is actually recognized in the way it appears on Excel.
And just to add, Louise, this board will not go away. So this is a permanent board. So if you have a workshop with participants, they can always come back to this and refer to it.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Thank
Keep
you.
it open. The other thing is, which I think, I haven't tried this yet, but one day I'm going to do it, is you see beside me here a whole load of Post-its. That's just my notebook there. But I could take a photograph of that and export it or import it into Miro, and it will turn it into the sticky notes that you've been playing with. So I can turn an actual flip chart with Post-it notes on it into an interactive whiteboard. I think that's quite extraordinary. And one day I'll use it, I'm sure, when I get back into sort of doing the work I normally do in rooms. I'm just going to go over some of the key things just to sort of consolidate the learning from this. But yeah.
Ben, sorry, we've got a question from Sam.
Okay, yeah. There she is.
Yeah, so I know I don't mind showing you my face in a second. I'm just sitting in a very messy corner of my house.
Okay.
So the first question is actually quite a simple one, and that's just that I wasn't 100% sure about how you created the box to go around the cluster. I think I missed seeing the little tool you clicked on. So if you could recap that. And the second one's a bit more complicated. I was at a work meeting yesterday where they had this like really beautiful sort of pre-designed Miro board with columns set up and like different coloured stickies in each column, and they did this sort of like rotational thing, so you kept on finding yourself in different columns with different facilitators. So if that's sort of like the PhD of Miro and not for today, that's fine, but if it's incredibly easy to do things like that, maybe tell us how.
It is. My concern is that I could just overwhelm you with lots and lots of stuff right now. And I think the best thing to do is, if you're interested in it, Miro do actually have some very, very good tutorials and guides on their website. That's where I learned, and then I developed my own way of doing things. So I create my own Miro boards now using the tools that they have there. The drawing a box tool is what I use to create the red box on that screen that you're looking at. I will just quickly show you that again so you can see what I did.
Sure. Hold on 1 second. I think I just have to get back to the Miro screen. Ah, you're doing it.
I'm just sharing so you can see it. So. But in this menu, you may sometimes have to scroll up and down this menu to find the things you're looking for. But the main one that you will be using is the Post-it note, which is this one with a little turned up corner, but it does look quite similar to this shape tool here, particularly when the shape you're choosing is a square.
Okay, that's what I've been seeing before. That's where the square is. Okay.
Yeah, so if you go into shapes, you have all sorts of different shapes there. The one I was actually trying to show you is that you can draw and you can make it snap to the shape you're trying to draw, but I've forgotten how to do that, to tell you the truth. There is a way to actually, if you draw a rough circle like that, it will actually become a perfect circle if you want it to.
Ben, I think it was the third option down when you were in pen.
The third option down in pen, this one. Yep, smart drawing, thank you. So I'm drawing a rough circle, but it should click it to, oh, there you go. I don't know if you saw that. Thank you, Elisa. Have you been practicing?
Just learning from the best, Ben.
Well, I have done it for a couple of weeks and I've forgotten. I don't use that tool that often, but for instance, look, there's a little cluster here. I'm going to draw a rough circle around it and it should click to a perfect circle. And then I can also change the style of that. Can you remember how to do that, Elisa?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, here we go. No, I can't do it. Can't do it quickly. But you can actually, instead of having this as a black line, I could look here. Increase the thickness, put a different color on it, and suddenly you've got something which looks pretty amazing. It is a great, great tool. And as I say, as a facilitator, I tried other things, but this one was the one that made me go, oh wow, I can actually now do participatory sessions online with people. The thing about Post-it notes on a flip chart is that you get everybody to actually contribute their thinking right up front in a session, and as a group you can do the sort of analytical clustering that that we've just done on this one. That is the beauty of it, and this replicates that online. It's fantastic. It's a great tool for that. So it mirrors that work. It is ultimately extremely interactive and participatory. I wrote those comments down there when we were listening to feedback from you guys, but equally one of you could do that. You could write your own comments in there. You could add all sorts of other things to this board if you wanted to, just to sort of bring more out of it. Once you get over this initial learning phase of this thing, as Sam was asking, that to create that pink board there, I just drew a board like this, and you can actually put a fill color on it as well, and I want to have it quite light fill color. I've just done that, and you can plonk a question in the middle of it. What? That's a good question. Or actually, my favorite question as a facilitator. How about that? Why? Why? All of this, why? That's a great question for a facilitator, but that's how you actually make these boards. But you could make that, if you wanted to, you could make it as a circle or a different shape. And all the sort of PhD that you're talking about of Mirrorboard use, that's just someone playing with all the functionality. So go and have a look at Mirrorboard. Whilst we're sharing, I'm just going to share with you some work that I've been doing on Mirrorboard, and Emma will hopefully recognize the first one. This is some work that I've been doing with an alliance of SFP food partnerships in the Northeast. So it's Newcastle, County Durham, and Middlesbrough have been working together, looking at how they could work regionally as an alliance of food partnerships. And this is their Mirrorboard. So you can see it starts off similar to yours, some instructions about how to use the Mirrorboard, and some basic questions. What single word sums up the way you behave towards each other? So that was the very first meeting we had. I'm not sure if I've written down how long ago it was, but look at this. We've been using this to document meetings all the way through the pandemic. And we've been meeting every other week or something like that. Oh my God, it just goes on and on. This is quite an incredible bit of work. It documents everything we've been talking about. Here's a tool that I developed, and we never actually got around to using it. And look at this. This is a tool for backcasting, for looking at where you want to get to and putting in the steps of what needs to happen to get there. You can make up your own designs. You can bring in documents from elsewhere to refer to and provide reference. You can actually have these specific comments on specific things that they were talking about. I'll zoom right out, you can see the whole thing. That's their Mirrorboard, which documents meetings over a year. Really fantastic bit of work. Here's one which I did in Buckinghamshire, where they were developing a food strategy before they became a SFP member, and they ran what they called their food summit. Starting off, again, there's instructions here, but once you get over that, what one thing would you like to see in 10 years' time? A big opening question with people putting some of their responses down to a one thing question in the middle of a bubble like that. You know, how joined up is your work? Here's a continuum tool that I've developed. Not joined up at all, very joined up. They're not feeling very joined up. So what needs to happen to become more joined up? This was a facilitated process. We took them through over 2 hours, finishing off with, you know, what are the key food issues under food and the environment, food and economy, food and community? This is sustainable food planning, interactive planning on a Mirrorboard. Final one. SFP have been trying to work out what on earth are we going to do about this program, phase 3 of the SFP program. So I ran sessions over a few weeks on the theory of change that was developed for phase 3 of SFP and how we're going to deal with the pandemic. This is a diagram of the theory of change. This is the whole team making comments. If I zoom out, we then unpicked each of these sections of the theory of change and dug into it and did detailed analysis of each one. Look at this, it's incredible. There's the whole thing. I won't go into detail because that's giving away what we're doing with the program. But there it is. It's a really interesting bit of work and made easier by Mirrorboard. It's a fantastic bit of kit. So this is the starting point. This is where you begin your learning process and using this tool. It can be very, very powerful. Okay, so we're now at 11:15. We're going to do a very quick session based around breakout rooms now, where we're going to consider another question. I'll stop sharing so you can see each other. And I'll put up a second question, which is a sort of follow-on to what we've just been talking about. Let me share screen and show you this question.
I'll put it on the chat as well, Ben.
Yeah, it's on the chat as well, but there's the question that we're going to be dealing with now. What do you think would improve remote sessions? So we started off with a what do you think, a sort of an evaluation question. We're going straight to an action question. What do you think would improve remote sessions? And the sort of things, you don't have to answer the 3 prompts specifically, but what could be done differently? How could the remote sessions be made more productive and enjoyable? And what would make remote sessions a better experience for you? Those are ways of sort of unpicking that main question. What do you think would improve remote sessions for you? So that's the question we're going to be thinking about. I've stopped sharing so that we can just sort of send ourselves off into breakout rooms. I'm going to suggest that we just do 2 breakout rooms, I think, Elisa, just because of the number of people that we have here, just to have a quick conversation about that question. So everybody, when you find yourself in your breakout room, just say a quick hello to each other. You know, say who you are and where you're from again, so people know who's in the room. But then it'd be really good if you could just share your different responses to that main question. Again, use those prompts if you need to just open it up a little bit. But the whole idea is to listen to each other and think about where there are similar perspectives or where there's difference of opinion or where someone says something that's really interesting or even surprising. That's what we're looking for. So what do you think would improve remote sessions? So we're going to send you off into those breakout rooms, and we're just going to do it until, I'm going to suggest we do it until 11 o'clock, if that's all right. And then we might stick our heads in and just say hi, just to check everything's all right. If you've had enough time already, we may close a bit early, but we'll say have a conversation till about 11 o'clock, and then we'll come back together again and hear what you've been talking about. Is everybody happy with that? Okay, so the breakout rooms have been set, and off you go. See you soon.
Welcome back, everyone. We're just going to wait until the second group comes in. I think they're deep in discussion.
Welcome back. Louise, you want to say something?
Sorry, just to say I've got to actually go to another meeting now, but thank you so much. It was really, yeah, really interesting.
That's a shame.
Chat in the breakout and learn about the mirror.
The recording will be there. The recording, you can see the whole thing when you have a chance. But it's good to meet you, Louise. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
Louise.
Thank you.
So I just dipped into one of the breakout rooms and realized that it would be really good to capture some of what had been discussed. So I very quickly put another sort of frame, if you like, on the Miro board. It's a circle, and in the middle it just says how to improve remote sessions. So it's where you could actually, if you wanted to now, you can just log some of what you've just been talking about in your remote, in your breakout room. So I'll just big up the questions so you can see it in the middle, but feel free to, as we're talking now, just put your comments down there. And this is an ideal thing for a facilitator, is that I don't try and interpret what you're saying. You say it, and we have your actual words there describing what you're saying. The first of which is breaks, and we will have a break in just 2 minutes. I just wanted to have a very quick unpicking of the breakout room and why I just used a breakout room. First of all, it changes the energy of the session. It brings things up, and it sort of shakes things up a little bit, breaks it up and gives a new energy because there's a new activity. It's like going to a different bit of a room and working in small groups. It's the same thing. And that can help with participation and overcoming some of people's inhibitions. Instead of a big group discussion where you're adding something, we're talking in a much smaller group. It's a lot easier, particularly if you're not particularly confident. It also means that you can explore things in the way that you want to. It's not guided by me as a facilitator. I just sent you out there. I did dip in and immediately I contributed, which is what I always do. But basically it's up to you where you take your conversation there. It's properly participatory. And it's a very good way of sharing different experiences and perspectives. So a lot of really good stuff going on down there. When I came in, there was a really interesting, really good top tips, which I hadn't even thought of, but I think it was Rachel who just finished talking about, and you might want to share this, Rachel, the whole idea of saying you're going to start at the top of the hour, but actually starting 10 minutes after that. Or maybe saying we're not starting at the top of the hour, starting at 10 minutes past. But do you want to share that, Rachel?
Yeah, so we were having a conversation about the importance of breaks within meetings and then also between meetings, because no one else can see your calendar, so you might have back-to-back meetings all day. And then I remembered from university is that a lot of lectures or seminars start on the 10 past to give people time to get there and time to sit down. So I didn't know if there was value in, you know, starting, you know, scheduling a meeting to start at 10 past an hour rather than on the hour, and then, you know, just sort of saying log on when you're ready, but we're going to start late so you get a bit of time before the meeting. Yeah.
I just think that's so sensible, so straightforward, and such an easy thing to implement. Yeah, Layla and then Ren.
Yeah, I was going to add, actually, what Rachel said is amazing. It's excellent, because I think we need that 10 minutes for a bit of a warm up, because you attend a meeting, you don't know anyone, and it's just everybody is like quite frozen and stone faced, you know what I mean? Like, whereas if we have that 10 minutes to allow people arrive, and then people just chat friendly, like, oh, how are you? Or who are you? You know, where are you from? I don't know, whatever. Yeah, that, or nice weather today, etc. That kind of breaks the ice a bit as an icebreaker.
Thanks, Layla. And Ren, can I just check, if you're saying these things, can you also put them on the Mirrorboard so that we capture it? It'd be really good. So Ren, yeah.
And not saying anything new, just basically what Layla said is, yeah, that's sustainable. Within internal meetings, they will have to be 45 minutes max, unless there's a real reason why you need to have an hour. And then, but also my housemate has the same thing as Layla, like all of their meetings, the first 10 minutes just for chat, for catching up, which is just quite nice, because you just miss that in, you know, without office culture, which is quite a nice sort of policy.
Yeah, I also heard Sam talking about just sort of very social space on Zoom rather than sort of professional practical workspace. Food Matters, every day at 10:30 we have a coffee break together, every day, and some days you can make it, some days you can't, but if you can make it, we all go in there and we talk about the weather, we talk about our hair, and we talk about aches and pains, and we talk about swimming and food, obviously. But it's fantastic. I've loved it throughout pandemic. It's just been brilliant, absolutely brilliant, having that 10:30, half an hour usually. Claire also mentioned something in the room I popped into, which I thought was interesting, about working with young people. Do you want to share it? It was about starting with breakout rooms, just to ease people into the idea of participatory working, but in smaller groups rather than larger groups. Do you want to share that, Claire?
Hi, yeah, I was just saying we had large groups of about 20 kids who didn't know each other. Initially I tried to do a big kind of icebreaker all together, and they definitely encouraging them to speak on camera was quite tricky. So yeah, quite quickly we just learned just putting them into smaller groups right at the start. Immediately they all just kind of, yeah, they were just much more willing to talk. And also they didn't want their cameras on. I think they're off because they're at school. When they're at school, they don't have to have their cameras on. Whereas this was actually a filmmaking workshop, and I just tried to encourage them to say, like, this is a visual medium. You know, it really helps us if we can all see each other and hear each other properly. And straight away they were just up for it. So I think, you know, setting that tone at the start, you know, like, I mean, a bit like you did, Ben, just kind of setting some ground rules around how it's going to work depending on the meeting, and it won't always be the same, but I think that's just really helps because we are all doing slightly different things with different people.
Absolutely. And again, really good bits of learning there from Claire. I think, actually, I'll just share something. Yesterday, my son was going to be on a 1-hour Teams call, a Teams webinar. I think there were 2 people running it, and they had 800 participants, and there was a bit of a tech issue right at the beginning, and it turned into a Rick-rolling spam fest, if you know what I mean, on chat. So everybody was just trying to get people to open links where they would find Rick Astley saying, yeah, so that was the whole thing, and they had to close it down. And a lot of it is to do with, that's too many people for a start. You know, maybe starting with smaller groups would have helped them, but being a bit prepared would probably have helped them. I just thought I'd share that because I thought it was very funny as well. I would have died. Anyway, does anybody else have any other comments they want to make? It's brilliant. Everybody's now up to speed on the Mirrorboard. Everything seems to be added to that chart there. So thank you very much for doing that. Layla.
Something we discussed in our group, and I think it's worth mentioning, is because you see your own image on Zoom, you become a bit self-conscious, and like, you know, as probably especially ladies, but we don't do that in real life meetings, do we? We don't see ourselves talking.
Yeah.
I don't see my own horrible accent, which I hated, but I don't hear it, I don't see it, and I don't hear it when I'm talking in real life meetings. Whereas on Zoom, I'm just seeing everything, and it's just so annoying.
I love it, Layla, by the way, but you can you can hide self-view. If you go to the
Oh, cool.
3 dots in the corner of your if you go down there, there is a
sorry, so I've been a bit unintelligent.
We still see you, but you don't see yourself.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, another little...
But then I'm not used to seeing myself. I'm not conscious of
Okay.
Sorry.
What I noticed, the very first... Oh, Ren, yes, sorry.
I don't know, Nick, if you want to share, but Nikki shared something really interesting about engaging with audiences.
You're muted at the moment, Nikki. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just something I learned from a session that worked really well, Ren. The person, and this was someone presenting, but the presenter just said, this is really weird for me. I'm used to talking in halls where I can get interaction. I need you to interact with me. If you agree with something I'm saying, put +1. And it was part of the ground rules of the session. And it kind of said, well, we're all in this shared experience together. This is strange. Let's interact as much as possible using the tools we've got. And the other thing she asked was for people to say, she acknowledged there were distractions on the computers, so closing down emails, etc. So something about being a good audience member, and I thought that was a really interesting ask, and it worked for that session because it made it a shared responsibility.
Fantastic, Nikki. Thanks for that. I'll just point out that there are a couple of resources that I wrote at the beginning of the pandemic that are available on the SFP website somewhere. I haven't quite tracked them down. They were produced quite early on, but one of them is exactly around that, listen. If you haven't got anything to say, don't say anything. Make sure you eat before you come to the session, because people might not want to watch you eating. Make sure you've got enough refreshments handy if you need to refresh yourself. All those sort of things, little rules for group calls. Just point out that has been written and is available somewhere. Sam had a hand up, which has gone down, and then I saw another hand up. Yes, Claire.
Is Sam going first?
I don't think so.
Oh no, sorry.
Yeah, no, I put my hand down. Ben said what I was going to say, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sam. So Claire, just quickly, yep.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, just off the back of what you were saying, sort of knowing your audience and the tone. I did go to an event, I can't remember the organisation, but it was a conversation around sort of a lack of diversity in the food, particularly in farming, and they actually set off by doing a really short meditation, and it was just, it completely brought everyone together. And I get that was quite a specific group of people, but it really, it was amazing, and it just fully brought everyone's focus into the room. And I'm not saying it start every session with a meditation, but some kind of something to bring people together was just really lovely and refreshing.
Brilliant. That's a great idea. Again, you need to know what you're doing to do that properly. I did one for our at the end of last year, SFP. We didn't have a conference, but we did have a virtual hug session that I sort of facilitated. And right at the beginning of that, we did a sort of everybody put down one word that sums up the year, and everybody did that quite happily. And then I said, okay, unmute and shout that one word. And again, it was quite a cathartic moment, quite emotional, but it was a really good start to a session which was not about work. It was about us as a network. So there are different things that you can do. The shout was quite a good one, I have to say. I'm conscious that we need to take a break. So Nikki, did you want to say something else? I saw your hand.
Oh, just there's loads of great ideas about, warm-ups and participation. I just wondered if there's a place we can go to for a list of those.
I can't think offhand of one which is really good, but there is, again, in one of those resources, there's a group, and they call themselves something like Spoon Room or something like that, and it's based around different facilitation techniques for these sort of meetings, and it's based around the idea of having a talking spoon. So if you want to say something, you hold up your spoon. I'll use a stapler, but you hold up a spoon. It's about talking spoons, and it's quite light-hearted, but everything in there is brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and I would definitely look it up. I'll try and find the link if I can. It is on one of my documents. I might do it during the break if I can find it, but that's one good place for good facilitation techniques. A lot of the warm-up stuff, the chat thing that we did, I'm modeling it a little bit in this session, including, I want everybody to actually take 5 minutes now, because this is quite intense and we haven't finished, and I want to try and finish on time, but it looks like we're going to squeeze things a little bit. But I still want to model good behavior by saying, let's have a break. So some of you may not need a comfort break, but I would say, even if you don't need a comfort break, get up and go and get something read and bring it back. Okay? So either take a comfort break or go and get something read and bring it back. And I'll see you at 20 past. So that's 4 minutes, 20 past. back. Brilliant. That was a good red treasure hunt. Wave your red things. Yeah. Trying to work out what they all are. Yeah, we've drawn attention to Liam's edibles, which look fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody. There's no point to this other than a quick treasure hunt to give you a little bit of energy when you and encourage you to get up and go around. So we don't need to sort of unpick what you've come back with, but it's just a way to get people up and moving, which is always useful in these sort of sessions. I'm just going to point out that Miro, though I love it, I'm not on a commission, by the way, it's fantastic, but there are other ways of doing the same thing, which I will also share with you now. One of which is basically another shared document, but it's just a document. It's not a whiteboard this time. So I'm just sharing my screen again. I'll check with Elisa that you can see the one that says GM Freeze on the top of it. So this is some work that I was involved with. I was being facilitated, and they used a Google Doc that we all shared in real time, where you can see the different people who were involved, but you can also see a question being asked and people just writing responses on a Google Doc. So if you don't want to get into Post-it notes and the brilliant visual that we have with a Mirrorboard, a Google Doc might be another way of doing that. As I say, it's less engaging. It's very difficult to cluster. The facilitator just gathered what we had, and there wasn't an analysis of it really. But I just thought I'd share it as, you know, you don't have to go full tech on all of this if you don't want to. When I was exploring different options, other than Mirrorboard, I did also find Jamboard, Google Jamboard. These are all available, by the way, when you open, I'll just do it. When you open Google here, you have Docs and Jamboard available just as your Google options on the Google browser. But this is what a Jamboard looks like. And this was a Jamboard that was produced at the end of a session on diversity that I was part of, which I thought was absolutely excellent. And they just got people to write down their responses to the question, why is it hard to talk about race? But you can see that it's not an infinite space. You can see that some of the writing goes outside the size of the Post-it note that's being used. You can see that there's a clunkiness to Jamboard that you don't have with Miro. It is another option. People have to be using Google in order to use it. I thought I'd share it just to show that Mirrorboard isn't the only way. I still think it's the best way. This has many limitations, but could also be used. So that was that. I'm also going to share my screen again to show you some of the learning that I've been putting across in this session as a sort of modeling of what I've learned and what I think might be useful for you to sort of take away with you from this session. This is extracted from a resource sitting within the SFP toolkit on the website. So you go to the toolkit. Right down at the bottom, there's a section on sort of other resources, and remote collaborative working is the name of the resource. But this is just a very quick run through what is included in that resource. And a lot of it we've already talked about. Can I just check that you've got that on your screen? Yeah. So it's just some things to consider. The remote collaborative working resource has a bit more on all of these, but expectations, don't try and get too much out of one session. Don't force it. You know, it's quite intense what we're doing compared to an in-person session. So, you know, don't push it too hard. Do more than one session if you need to. Create an environment that works for people. Ensure that people feel safe and comfortable with the style of your session. And Claire picked up on this again, you know, be upfront and say what you're hoping to achieve. We're doing something visual or we're doing something participatory. So it'd be great if we can see each other, that sort of thing. The tools, you don't want people to be left behind. You want to spend a bit of time trying to get people up to speed with the tools that you might be using in your session. I did send out the Mirrorboard before the session so that people could get their heads around it beforehand if they wanted to. But you saw how quickly I got you up to speed once we're in the session as well. It works both ways, but I like to try and do that preparatory work as well. I do it with most of my sessions. It's not always particularly successful, but I think it's a good option. It also gives you a starting point, a springboard for what happens in the session. I'm going to break the next bit of that rule, which says keep new tools to 1 per session if possible, because I will show you Mentimeter in a little bit as well. But you don't want people to be overwhelmed by too much tech in order to get involved and engaged with the session. I've facilitated this session. My role has been to try and support your participation engagement, but Elisa is there as well, and she's really important. She's picked up on stuff that fall through the net. She's added stuff that I've not mentioned. She's drawn attention to things that I've forgotten. She did the breakout rooms. She's a really safe pair of hands. I've worked with her before. Really important to try not to do it all on your own, because things can go wrong, and then it's always useful to have someone else there who behind the scenes can sort out problems, or even up front when you say something's gone wrong, we'll try and sort it out. You don't have to hide, you know, things go wrong. But 2 facilitators is really good. Setting ground rules, we talked a little bit about that as well. But also, I use 2 screens when I'm facilitating. So I've got I know what I'm sharing, that's on one screen here, and I'm still seeing you on this screen here. That is quite important as a facilitator, is that I always have an eye on you and that I can see if someone's got a hand up at any point. And the other thing is the structure of your session. So the advanced question, different tools and approaches, breakout rooms and breaks, but a logical question sequence, as you would if you were facilitating in a room. Start off with a big, broad question, maybe a little bit of an evaluatory question. What do you think about? How do you feel? Why has this been successful or not successful? And then digging down a little bit more into the specifics, which we sort of did when we did our analysis. And the final question is, what would you do to make it better? It's the action. There's a logical sequence there, which as a facilitator, I try and bring into every single session that I run. Broad, dig down, analysis, action. How do you respond to what we've learned? That sort of thing. So again, that is in the resource on the website, and you can go and have a look at that in your own time. So I won't take any more. I'll just check if anybody has any questions on that in particular before we sort of begin to round off. Okay. Brilliant. So, as I said, we are just going to show you very quickly another tool just to finish things off. And it's what you're going to take away from this, really. I'll share screen, and Elisa, again, will pop it into the chat. Oh. Again, Elisa, can you see that?
Nope.
Nope, okay. That's because I didn't press share. Can you see it now?
Yes.
So the question there, what one thing will you do differently in the next remote session you are running? So this is your takeaway from this session. What tool will you try to use? What approach will you try to use? What will you do to make the session more enjoyable and more productive based on what we've been through today? So that's the question. It's also in chat, but also in chat is the link, which is menti.com. You can see a link there, and that's a link to Mentimeter. Now, Mentimeter is an instant sort of polling or survey tool, which again, I think is really, really useful to just get an instant snapshot of what people think and what people want to take away from this session. So, has everybody linked through to their Mentimeter link there? And it'll state that question. If you hover over the question, you can see that there are also those prompts, and just put into one statement, what one thing will you do differently in the next remote session that you're running? And pop that into Mentimeter. Can I just get a thumbs up from anybody who's used Mentimeter before in a session? A few of you haven't, and a few of you have. I could have used this right at the beginning for our one word, but I wanted to introduce mirror at the beginning, which is why we're using this just at the end. But it's a very, very useful way of, again, just capturing the responses from you as we're leaving. And a really useful tool. It has also, again, I'd go to their website, but it has all sorts of very useful ways of actually asking a question and then presenting the findings from the question. So can I just, has anybody had any trouble getting onto Mentimeter and using it? Has everybody done that? Can I have a thumbs up if you've managed to do it? And Sam and Kiloran, are you happy?
Yep.
Yeah. Brilliant. Are you okay, Kiloran?
Yeah, all good.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, because what I can do now, again, I will share screen so you can see the results of that and how it's presented in this particular instance. Bang, bang. So there we are. That's the screen, which is showing your responses now as verbatim quotes that you've written down into Mentimeter, what you're going to take away and do. Mirrorboard is there. Use Miro. Start at 10 past the hour. I'm going to do that as well. That's my learning. I think that's a brilliant, straightforward, simple one. Try to preserve the first 10 minutes for casual chat. Absolutely. I think this is a really good learning for me. Broad question, check-in, always a good start. And in sustain, I've seen that you do this, Ren, but also we try and do it in all of the SFP sessions that we run. Get a drink at the beginning, icebreakers, more tricks on Miro, great tool. Fantastic. But you could see, again, I've just demonstrated a quick use of Mentimeter there. I think it is fantastic. What I would suggest is a quick screenshot of that, and you can take that away and have it on your desktop if you like, or print it out. It's just something you can take away at the end of the session, which is, again, something I think is very useful. And that's just about it. I'll just do a quick check around again, just to see if there's anything that jumps out at you as headlines or highlights that you want to share with us before we finish. We're a little bit over, but yes, Emma, would you like to say something?
Yeah, can I just ask a question? Have you ever kind of been running a session where people didn't want to engage with Miro or Menti? Like, have you set up a question and you've had, let's say, 40 people on the call and you've got less than 10 answers? How do you kind of get over that hurdle if people are a bit not engaging with it? How do you overcome it?
We modeled it right at the beginning, which was a brilliant thing that Elisa did. When Sam said that she was struggling a little bit, and before she got on, Elisa offered to take a comment from chat and create a sticky note on Sam's behalf. And I have run a session, which was brilliant that Elisa did that, but I have run a session with 2 or 3 other SFP team members when all 3 of them were working on behalf of participants who had struggled to engage. Again, you may not have the luxury of lots and lots of co-facilitators hanging around, and you may want to be facilitating rather than doing that transcribing. But it's another good reason to have one. You know, I did actually have another 2 co-facilitators lined up for this call in case there was a lot of people on it. So 2 colleagues from Food Matters. I said, I think Elisa and I will be all right on this one to do it 2-handed. Big group, I'd say another 2 co-facilitators for just that sort of occasion. I did have to spend a lot of time. The first time I did this was I was facilitating something for GM Freeze, and there was one chap there who really struggled with it. And again, my host, I was facilitating, but she was hosting the call. She did the transcribing, and I also taught him very, very carefully how to do it. And he actually ended up on board as well. occasionally you'll find people who join a call by phone, and then it's almost impossible for them to use Miro. But as Elisa also said, the Mirrorboard doesn't go away. That sounds like a weird sort of strapline to a movie. The Mirrorboard never leaves you. But it's always there. You can add things afterwards. You can get up to speed more gradually and add things later. So I can see Sam has got a hand up, and then Elisa. Elisa, do you just want to comment on that immediately? Yeah, Elisa.
Sorry, Sam. Just to add that I've been thinking a lot about how to make these online spaces accessible for folks who don't have laptops, for example, because, you know, I think I'm a very privileged person. I have a laptop, but sometimes I forget that other people don't and that it's not standard. So I think it's important to keep in mind what Ben just said. You know, sometimes they might have to join via phone. They might not have a phone, in which case, you know, you need to think about how you work around that, how you can make things participatory as possible, right?
And I think it is about exploring it yourself a little bit. It's possible that a Google Doc is a better way of doing it in that case, rather than a big sort of wide angle Mirrorboard type thing, but experiment. I think with Claire, they're working with young people. I have found it occasionally that you can't assume that people all have the hardware that makes this possible. So it's particularly in that situation, and people who are sort of financially less able to engage as well without the tech. Sam, yeah, your comment.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the brilliant session. And I wanted to throw something in. I went to a session recently that was hosted by Acumen about digital burnout, and it had some really good tips, and quite a lot for people like me who just need a rest from being on screen. And one of the things I sort of suggested you could do is sort of change the culture in meetings to actually make it really okay for people to be off screen, and to sort of talk about bits where it will be fine to be off screen. And I was wondering, as a facilitator, apart from sort of making it okay and sort of giving people ideas in advance of when you can be off screen, if you've got any other good ideas.
I think it's a really, really good point. Again, I explain up front when I'm running sessions that they are going to be participatory. I hope it was made aware to you that this was like a participatory session. If not, I need to work harder at doing that. But I think the idea is that if you are clear up front what it is you're going to be doing in a session, that's one thing you can do. But what I'm learning from a question like that, Sam, is that, you know, within a session, you can mix it up. You can say, if you want to, at this point, you can turn off your screen, have a break from the screen. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can mix it up. You know, we could have been off screen for a lot of it other than the breakout room, if you think about it. I want to see you in a session like this so that I can gauge your reaction to what I'm saying sometimes. And this is more like a training thing. So I want to know whether or not it's resonating with you, some of the stuff we're saying, or if you have common experiences. So being able to see you is quite important, but not absolutely vital. If you're doing a strategic planning session, it is quite important to see someone go like that. If someone says, I think we need to really focus on food waste, and someone shakes their head, that's quite a useful thing for me to see in a group thing. So if it's more of a training thing, maybe I didn't need to have videos on the whole time. Breakout rooms may be enough. But a strategic participatory planning session, I'd quite like to see people's reactions to things sometimes. I might pick up on that and ask people if they're willing to sort of, I sensed a bit of disagreement there. Does anybody want to share their different perspective on this issue? And you can't do that with the screen off. I think it's just being really clear up front, not only what you're going to be doing, but why. You know, that's what I do with my kids. If I'm asking them, don't do that, I don't just say, don't do that. I say, don't do that because. So if you're clear, we're going to have a session where it'd be really good for you to have your videos on, the reason being, and then explain why. And I think people can then decide whether or not it's for them to some extent. That sounds a little bit harsh, doesn't it? What do you think?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I guess you're coming at it from a facilitator's point of view. I'm thinking more about myself as a participant, and I'm sort of strong-minded enough that I'll just do what I need to do for myself to look after myself. But I'm just, you know, for me, I would probably like more meetings where more permission is given, that, you know, it's fine if you need to have a screen break to be off screen, you know, as long as you're present.
I completely agree. And I'm going to build that into sessions now. I'm going to find bits which I don't need to see the whites of people's eyes all the time, and I will make that clear. At the beginning, I'll say there will be moments where I'm going to suggest if you want to, you can turn your screen off, but then I may ask you to turn it on again another time. I think it's a really good, really good topic. I'm going to
I mean, you might know this already, but essentially when you just are gazing at one thing, it totally like changes your whole breathing and your whole nervous system, and it's really subtle. But I think if people had more time off screen, it would probably have a really good effect on stress levels and things like that in work environments too.
Absolutely. But we're all learning the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you. Now, I just wanted to sort of see what wisdom you had to share on that one.
Oh, I'm learning from you on that one, Sam.
Okay. But yeah, if you can get hold of the Acumen thing, it's really interesting. If I've still got the link, I'll try and send it to you. About an hour.
Thanks, Sam. Emma, did you want to jump in on this particular topic?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Sam if when she turns her camera off, do you physically go away from your screen? Is that what you mean by off screen, or do you just mean turn your camera off? That was just my query.
Oh, okay. So I turn it off. I sort of treat it like a radio. So it's audio, and it does mean that sometimes I might choose to like stretch and move around a little bit as well. But it's more just like not having to constantly look. That's the main thing.
I think they're really good top tips. I'm very aware that we're more than 10 minutes over. If anybody feels they need to go, but if you're happy to stay, I'm happy to stay. So we'll keep rolling. But if you need to leave, please say, and that's absolutely fine. But Ren, yeah, you're on mute. You're on mute at the moment. Classic.
I think Rachel was first, actually. Yeah, classic.
Rachel, do you want to speak now then?
Sorry, yeah, thanks. It's a really quick, it's not really a question, I suppose it's more of a reflection on what I've thought about from this session is, you know, a lot of the meetings that I facilitate or the kind of groups that I'm in, you know, a lot of that format is inherited from the previous in-person, you know, off-screen meetings. And I think a lot of that's just carried over. So there's a certain amount of, I don't want to say pressure like on a facilitator, but to kind of make some kind of consistency for the people coming in those groups to just say like, okay, well, we've transitioned to the same thing, but on screen. Whereas I think I've been struck by how, not easy, but like how subtle some of the changes can be. And, you know, if it's as simple as building in a break or starting 10 minutes later or using a breakout space, none of that is revolutionary, but actually it can have a really big impact on that meeting and the tone of that group. So I think sometimes maybe I'm guilty of overthinking the tech and the kind of innovation side of it, whereas actually it can be as simple as using like that Mentimeter thing. You know, you can just ask one question on that and just get people to vote on something. And that could be all you do, but if that's different enough from the previous meetings, actually that can be a kind of step change for those people. So I don't know, I've been struck by, I mean, Miro is great, but I think maybe a bit too powerful for some of the things that we need to talk about day to day in our networks. But I think there's lots of things that we can do to make things more informal and more relaxed and to build those personal relationships that don't necessarily need to stretch people.
And I think the Mentimeter thing that you drew attention to, it is extremely valuable because it's so accessible. And I didn't really do much with it once we've got on this. We can look. I could have asked the first question, the Mirrorboard question on Mentimeter, and we could have used that without clustering it as the basis for the whole session on remote working, if you like. We could have then asked people to expand on that or look at common themes based on what went on Mentimeter. And I've been at sessions which have just used Mentimeter. I'm not saying Miro is the best and only way to do things, and you will have done different things. I just thought I would share my experience of it and how it can be used. But yeah, there's plenty of others actually simpler and less full on. Mentimeter is a good one, which is why I shared it here. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you everybody for engaging so fully in this session. I think it's been really useful to, you know, I've learned, and as a facilitator, that's always important, that I'm picking up new ideas the whole time. I've got a whole stack of them here. I'm going to go back and look at the Mirrorboard. If you want to go back and look at the Mirrorboard, and if you have another thought, add it. It's not going anywhere, and you've got a link to it now. It's yours. Hopefully that's been useful. Hopefully you'll go away and use some of these ideas from us and from the other participants. So again, thank you very much for coming along. Thank you for your help, Elisa. And thank you for all your brilliant thinking. It's so good. This will be on the website now for people to experience and hear what we did. So well done, everyone. Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
Brilliant.
Thanks, everyone.